What's up, Nerdy Bunch audience? We're back for another podcast this week. Me and Scotty break down week 7 of the NFL football season. We end the podcast with Scotty's top 5 favorite bets of the week. And we just break down to try to figure out who's number 1 in the NFL this week. Who's number 1 in the NFL this season? Who's going to win the Super Bowl? It's the League of Parody. And we're trying to figure out who's the best. Is it the Bills? Is it the Chiefs? Is it my Eagles? Is it Scotty's Bucks? Who is it? Join us. Welcome back, Nerdy Bunch, Nerdie Sports audience. We are at October 16th. We're going to jump into it and talk about the NFL. We are in week 7 of the NFL season. Almost halfway done, Scotty. How are you feeling about everything overall?
I think this is probably the best time of the year, arguably. It's up there. I mean, football is like right in the middle of things. You got
Mm-hmm.
college football, basketball's about to start. For those in the Northeast, the foliage is beautiful. Like it's just a great time of year. I'm a basic person. I got my pumpkin spice latte here. I'm ready to go, loving it. Biggest knock for me right now is fantasy teams getting destroyed. So, but that's different topic for a different show maybe. But
Yeah.
otherwise, feeling good. Feeling good.
I'm scrapping into the playoffs. I'm in 7th right now in our league. I'm just hoping. My
Yeah.
team is good though. I'm still happy with
Yeah.
it. I got Dak. I got plenty of, wide receivers. Unfortunately, my backup running back, Trevion Henderson, hasn't popped off yet. But speaking of Trevion Henderson, the New England Patriots were one of your best bets. The AFC
Yes.
East. I was like, no way, Scotty. The Bills are superior. I know they're dropping a little bit, but all of a sudden the Bills lose another game. And the Bills are only minus 230 to win the division. Your New England Patriots, your Drake May New England Patriots are plus 185. That's a juicy bet right now.
Yeah. I feel like it is. I'm worried for the Bills. I'm worried for the Bills because if you look at their opponents, the Ravens win doesn't look that impressive
Hmm.
anymore. The Jets win is, I mean, they blew them out. It's what you can do. That's your opponent. You play who you're on your schedule. But obviously, the Jets are maybe the worst team. I think Tennessee's worse, but the only team that has no wins. The Dolphins, Tua's given another terrible press conference. They're looking terrible. And that game was competitive. Like the Dolphins were right in it to the end. That wasn't even like they handled them. The Saints, even though they beat my Giants the other day, I don't want to talk about it. Obviously, they're not considered a great team. And that, again, I think the Saints were like down 2 at one point in the fourth quarter. So it wasn't really a game, but it was like definitely not that. That should be that type of blowout that you see the Lions normally give or something, But, and then you lose back to back games. And if you just want to do the most basic stat you can look at, you could say New England 4-0 against bad teams, 0-2 against good teams. If you put Baltimore as a bad team because it's a record, if you just say against teams with losing records instead of maybe bad teams, I just say losing records. They're 4-0 against teams with winning records. They're 0-2. And when I say winning records, I'm including Atlanta, who is only 3-3. That's actually not even a winning record. That's just so I guess you say 500 or above. They haven't beaten a team, and it's really scary. It reminds me of the Packers Cowboy tie because you say, okay, well, they lost to the Browns, trap game. Now they're going to crush them. You lose to New England. Josh Allen gives the interview, and I like this interview. It's like, piss poor offense. We're coming out. They're angry. I'm like, I like angry teams. They're coming in. And then you lose to an Atlanta team, and it didn't look good on many factors. They can't stop the run. Bijan Runner might be the best running back, but he ran over him. I mean, Tyler Rozier's getting a touchdown. Like, they ran over him. And despite what the score saying 10, they had like 3 possessions, at least 3, I think. I meant before, I'm trying to remember, where they were down 7 with the ball. So you can't hang the defense entirely because that's giving you have Josh Allen, you have a top 5 quarterback, top 3, maybe some people want to say number 1. It depends where you want to rank them. With the ball 3 times, like then I can't even hang the defense, even though they couldn't stop the run. Because like, okay, you gave your guy the shot. That's all you want. When you have a star quarterback, you want 1 shot. You get like 3 shots, and you can't tie the game. This is to me, I'm like screaming panic flags here. I know I'm probably Mr. Overreaction, and maybe they'll get in for the freaking 1 seed, but I'm seeing huge issues right now.
Oh, it's fair. I mean, the Bills and the
Or
Patriots are
3 seed.
both tied, four wins, 2 losses each. They're both tied plus 30 point differential. So they're even right now. The Bills are built to beat the Chiefs. That's all they're focused on. Each year they're
Mhm.
built to beat the Chiefs. They're built to figure out how to attack Pat Mahomes. And unfortunately, when you're going up against teams with different strengths like the Falcons, who are built
Mhm.
extremely different than the Chiefs. We brought up last podcast the Denver Broncos, the Colts, the Falcons, some of the best defenses in the league. And the Falcons were going to test the Bills. Did I think the Falcons were actually going to win? All of a sudden now the Falcons are not saying the Bucks are going to lose the division. We'll talk about the Bucks, but they're at
Mhm.
least like plus 350. It's like reasonable. They're like right there. All of a sudden the Falcons are 2 games back, still a game and a half back, but this is a good team. The Falcons aren't necessarily one of the bad teams. The Ravens, on the other hand, they're a pretty bad team. So the Bills, going similar to how we feel, but the Packers going up against the Cowboys, another bad team, when it was 40-40. I think the Bills
Mhm.
Ravens score is like 41-40. Like you got to dominate a team like that. I know we thought the Ravens were good at that point in time, but now we know more information. And if you look at the Bills, they're no longer the Kings. They're no longer the Kings of the AFC. Crazy
Mhm.
enough, I know we can never bet against Pat Mahomes, but like they got to be number one, the AFC, right? I mean, the Steelers
For
are going
me,
to
they are.
lock that division, I think. The Colts, I think, are going to lock that division, even though the Colts are still only minus 135 and the Steelers are only minus 160 to win their division. I think those are pretty much locks. I don't like any other team in those
Yeah, I like
divisions.
those bets.
But the Chargers, Broncos, Chiefs, that's the battle right now. Who's going to be the best? And come on,
Mhm.
you got to pick Pat Mahomes over any of those other quarterbacks. Like Pat Mahomes
For
and the
sure.
Kansas City Chiefs are going to get Rashee Rice back. They're starting to flow. They're starting to get better. They got to be number one, right? I feel like this is the genre of this podcast. Who's number one? With the NFC, I don't know. I think the Lions, maybe you think the Bucks, but let's focus on the AFC now. The Bills are plus 310 to win the conference. The Chiefs are now
Okay.
plus 320. They consider them neck and neck. And there's a big jump back to third place. You got Colts plus 750, Chargers plus 850, Broncos plus 950, and the Ravens plus 1100, which I think that's just baked in odds from prior bets.
Yeah. I mean, you know, if first of all, if the Bills don't win, man, like this, I don't know what to say if they don't win. Like, how do you look in the mirror after the season? Because pretty much we all agree preseason and probably for the last couple seasons, arguably, that it's really a three-team race. The Bills, the Ravens, and the Chiefs. And even though we talk about the big four, Joe Burrow, Cincinnati has missed the playoffs a couple years in a row, so they have not been a really in the race when you talk about winning it. They're just more style points, and you have the quarterback. But now you have Lamar Jackson out of it basically. I don't forget the injury part. I mean, the Ravens, they're probably not going to make the playoffs. We could dive into that a little deeper in a second. But if you're the Bills, you're thinking, okay, I have the easiest path to the one seed. 2 weeks ago, they're 4-0, and they have the easiest remaining schedule in the NFL. The Chiefs at that point are, what were they?
Two
Two
and
and two,
three, two and
two
two,
and
something like
three.
that.
Yeah, because the
Yeah.
Bills had, but like, and you're thinking, okay, I have a huge advantage then. I can get the one seed. I get the bye. Maybe I get lucky and somebody takes the Chiefs out before I played them, or they have to come to my house. I'm gonna have home field advantage. Now they're sitting there at 4-3. The Chiefs are 3-3, and because they play each other, the Chiefs say, "We beat you. Now we have home field advantage over you." Basically, they control your own destiny in that sense. And the Bills, meanwhile, are looking at a possible wild card. Now, as much as I was high in New England, do I think the Bills win the division? I'd say they probably still win the division, but it's certainly up for grabs now. What we mentioned last week is they can't even cruise. Again, when they were 4-0, you go back 2 weeks ago, people are talking on the other shows, even they're talking about, will the Bills be resting starters for the final 2, 3 weeks? Is that going to be rust versus, rust versus rest, stuff like that? Like that's definitely out the window. That now they have to battle for what should be the best opportunity they've ever had to win the AFC because of Lamar Jackson going down, because of Joe Burrow going down, because of even the Texans really underperforming. They've been in playoff 2 years in a row. So I'm talking about previous playoff teams. You're thinking, okay, we don't worry about the Colts, even though they got the good record. We got this in a bag. We're going to be the one seed. The Steelers always losing the playoffs. So you're thinking how easy it's going to be. And now suddenly you have to battle for the division, maybe a division you've won. I think it's 6 straight years. They have like the second longest active winning streak of winning divisions. So this is a huge loss for the Bills. And the Chiefs, I don't see how you don't rank them number one. I think Vegas is way off to have them competitive. The Chiefs, to me, it would be a huge advantage because most teams are getting worse. They're getting better. Like they're bringing in how many other players added a, I don't know if we want to say star, but like a really good player to their roster this week. Like if most teams are not adding great players to the rosters, they're adding
Yeah.
a good player. They're averaging 30.7 points a game over the last 3 games. The offense is back. So you saw Pat Mahomes had 4 touchdowns, if you include running, in 2 of the last 3 games after doing it once in the previous 28 games. Like, their offense is cooking. Pat Mahomes now is, depending on some books, not most books, but there's a couple books in Bermuda where he's the number one odds to win MVP. So the Chiefs are cooking. They look scary. They beat a Detroit team that most people had as maybe number one last week in the NFL. You almost the aura starts coming, the intimidation factor. You see everybody start tweeting, it's the refs, it's the NFL is rigged. It's like those people are crawling out from under the woodwork with the NFL is rigged. It's not fair. Or maybe it's just the Chiefs are just better.
Yeah,
The big
these
picture,
AI
I think
videos are getting a little creepy. Like you got like
they
Pat
are.
Mahomes kissing the refs. I'm like, I don't know if I want this in my life right now.
Yeah,
But
no,
I know we
AI
keep
is
talking about the
ridiculous. Yeah.
Bills' schedule. The Chiefs, on
Hmm.
the other hand, they haven't really done anything great. I think it's like recency bias right now. Yes, this week the Bills lost to the Falcons, which they should definitely beat the Falcons, and the Chiefs beat one of the best teams in the league. They beat the Lions by 13 points, and they look dominant.
Hmm.
So we're going to all of a sudden be like the Chiefs are better. I think the Chiefs are better, but I disagree. I don't think the odds should be substantially different. I think 310,
Okay.
320 makes sense. I think personally the Chiefs should maybe be somewhere like plus 280 compared to 310, just a little bit ahead. So I don't think Vegas is completely off, but the Chiefs
Okay.
are just now looking better. The past 2 weeks, they're looking better. I mean, they started the season off losing to the Chargers and the Eagles, so they're 0-2. Then they beat the Giants and the Ravens. I know the Giants just had a great win versus the Eagles, but not really great teams. Then they lose to the Jaguars, and everybody's like, oh, they got to be trashed because the Jaguars. Then all of a sudden, the Jaguars come back this week, lose as we predicted. By the way, I think our picks were fire. I hope the Nerdy Bunch audience made bets based on what we did because we were on fire last week with all that. Their monster win against the Lions. That's what we're really focused on this one week. That dominant performance against a team that honestly I consider the best in the NFC right now. I think there's only two
The
teams that
Lions.
are impressing me. The Lions and the Bucks.
Okay.
Everybody else is showing so many faults, so many issues. The Bucks are all of a sudden, I know, look, we were on them week one. You were on them before the season even
Yeah.
started. They're finally ranked number one in the power rankings. They got the MVP in Baker Mayfield. Yeah, they keep winning these tight, gritty games, but they're the team that's actually showing it doesn't matter if we're down 7 offensive linemen. It doesn't matter if we're down Mike Evans. We're still going to come in and dominate you, or at least win.
Hmm.
We're going to win, and we're going to win with grit. They haven't had that like dominant performance like the Lions did, or I guess the Chiefs last week versus the Lions.
Hmm.
You know, they've won these tight games, and the Packers are struggling, as we always say. Unfortunately, they are the leaders in the NFC, but with the NFC, it's plus 370 for the Packers. It's just
Okay.
odds to basically make the Super Bowl, like win the conference. Plus 370 for the
Hmm.
Packers, plus 470 for the Lions, plus 500 for the Eagles, plus 750 for the Rams, plus 850 for the Bucks, plus 1100 for the 49ers. The Packers
I
get
mean,
way too much
that's
love.
insulting.
Yeah. And the Bucks, once again,
Yeah.
plus 850. They're finally like the leaders, but they're like, I don't think it's going to work in the playoffs, basically. But I think we got enough sample size. We got 6 weeks of sample. Like, this is a big deal at this point. We're a third of the way through the regular season.
Yeah. And the Bucks has had a lot of injuries, so that what confuses me is you normally Vegas would say they're predicting the future, hence the Chiefs have good odds, even though they're only 3-3 record. Even if you say, oh, we don't trust the Bucks record, but they're getting better, as far as they're going to be getting Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Mika back at some point. I don't know the week line of each one, but definitely before the playoffs. So they're picking up three arguably stars. It's like how many other teams are not. Take Philly, not to pick on your Eagles, but
Go for it. They
they're like
suck.
as healthy, like they're as healthy as any team. So what's
Yeah.
scary for Philly right now is if you're struggling right now, what if you had some injuries, like some of the other teams were mentioning? What if you were missing one of your better players? Because they're basically healthy. I don't know their roster off the top of my head as probably as well as you do, but they're really not missing many people at all. Particularly their offense, I don't think
Not
has any
enough.
injuries.
Yeah.
So
No.
like
A
where's
couple
the
of
issue? So if you're
linemen.
looking, I like to see teams that are getting better. Like I'll give the Niners some credit. They're 4-2 and they're injured all over. If now some of those injuries could be season, but if some of those players come back, you say, okay, we can actually raise our ceiling. So like you like to see stuff like that. The Rams look good, and Now Puka's injured, but you say, okay, we're 4-2, and I know he didn't really miss any games. He got injured in the last game, but again, you say, okay, he can come back. We can be better. So you look at teams that can get better. Even continuity. Seattle really impressed me this year. You're like, they're looking better, and they're Sam Darnold's first year there. So you say, okay, they could get even better with just time. So I like to look at the teams that I want that look like they're getting better. I think we're Atlanta's a year too soon, but we've spoken about them before. You say, okay, young team, young quarterback, in projecting higher teams. Meanwhile, I'll go to the Packers that we've never bought into. I don't know why they're number one because they are basically like fully healthy. They have really what should be no issues,
Yeah.
and they're not performing good enough. Like, what happens if some players go down on that? What happens? Can they perform as well when everything isn't perfect? And right now, they have not really had a lot of issues in the way. They haven't had a crazy hard schedule. They haven't had a bunch of injuries, and they're still not impressing me. So that to me is a red flag there. The Lions, I know that was a bad loss to the Chiefs. I still think the Lions are one of, if not the top contenders. I think the Bucks deserve to be number one. I know I'm super high in the Bucks, always have been. I feel like they've earned that by the way they played, and like I said, the fact that they're actually going to get better. So it's not like they're at the top. But I wouldn't touch this week. I would honestly lean more toward the Lions because I just don't know how. As much as I love Baker, and I think his odds for MVP should be higher than the team's odds. But with the injuries they have at receiver, I'm not sure how they're going to put up the points against the Lions. At some point, something's got to give.
So they're expected to get Bucky Irving and Emeka Buka back this week. So I think they should be
Jeez.
okay. But yeah, like you're saying, that's a crazy good Monday Night Football matchup. Lions Bucks, two teams that we're basically battling. I would pick the Lions to be the best in the NFC right now, and I think you would pick the Bucks, and they're going to battle it out this week. I think, once they get healthier later in the season, like you're saying, like this is a team that can compete against the rest of the NFC. I just want to see how they could compete against a team that, like the Lions, unfortunately, the exact opposite for the Philadelphia Eagles. They mix things up on offense, and you don't even know who's going to get the ball. The Eagles could do that. I mean, if let's bring up this Giants game. I was talking
Yes.
crap. I'm not going to lie. A week ago, it was Philadelphia Phillies about to start off, and they were going to play the Dodgers. That game ended up going to extras, and their reliever threw the ball home over. It was just such a devastating way to end the season. The Dodgers are moving on. The Dodgers are probably going to win the World Series. Then all of a sudden, Eagles come on, and it's like tied at halftime, and then the Giants just mollywop them in the second half. Saquon Barkley looks good in New York versus his old team, but they only end up giving him 12 carries and 2 catches. They don't feed him enough, and he was actually performing well. And then you got the wide receivers not even sitting next to Jalen Hurts. Brown is complaining on Twitter as always. Devonta Smith is that cool, calm, collected guy like an Emeka Buka who's like not really into drama, but he seems to be wanting to be partners with AJ Brown with all of this drama. And they're the most inconsistent players. Dallas Goedert's one of the most consistent tight ends. He had a great game too, but like they have plenty of weapons similar to the Bucks, similar to the Rams, similar to the Lions that could actually spread the ball, make it interesting. They just seem so slow, so methodical, so predictable, so boring. If I wasn't a fan, honestly, probably even more so because I'm a fan, I'm frustrated with this team. And I'm sure other people are like, really? The Super Bowl champions? I'm not impressed by this. I was excited because they had that comeback performance by the Rams. I'm like, okay, you take this momentum, you get it going. But now they are 2 losses in a row, similar to the Bills. You can't feel good about these teams. I don't know who the leaders are. Once again, I guess we're picking the Chiefs, and I'm going to pick the Lions. But who's number one? Up in the air.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. It's fun. That's what makes football fun is the fact that it's never what you think it is. Like other sports, sometimes are easy to preseason predict. Is like football, you pencil in what you think is going to happen. The season starts and just forget about it. But yeah, the Chiefs to me are definitely the favorite to get out of the AFC and the NFC. As much as I love Tampa, it's hard for me to peg them as the true favorites. I think the 850 is insulting.
I get it.
They should be at least top three. But I
Right.
think the Lions are still a fair number one, even though they did just lose. I still think they're fair number one, and they have a great. The Lions get the perfect opportunity. They get an injured Tampa, but eventually people aren't going to look back at injuries. They're just going to say they won. And for the Lions, this could get this. This could be the setup for the 1 seed. They win, they get the tiebreaker. You fast forward down the end of the season. If they could beat Tampa this week, they're now in the driver's seat to take home the 1 seed. They'll both have 2 losses, and they'll have the tiebreak over Tampa. So we might be looking back on week 17, week 18, and saying this was the game that decided who got the bye. Only the one seed gets the bye now. It used to be 2 teams get it. So this Monday night game is really big on so many levels. Plus, it should be just a fun game to watch. But like, too big. I think Lions are a fair pick. Philly, man, they have, is it 3 games in a row of just a terrible half? The Giants, the second half against the Giants, the Rams game, the Bucks game, and even though they won 2 of them, they keep putting together a half
I'd
that's just
say 4
miserable.
weeks in a row of that.
Saquon,
Yeah.
4? Yeah.
Yeah, because the
Saquon, he had
Rams' first
31
half
rushing
was
yards on the first
terrible.
possession.
The Bucks' second half was terrible. The Broncos' second half was terrible. The Giants' second half was terrible. 4 weeks in a row
The
of
Saquon thing is
half the
so
game
confusing.
barely scoring.
He had
Yeah.
31 rushing yards on his first possession, and then he gets, what is it,
You got 12
27 for the
carries.
rest of the game.
Yeah.
And why are they not running the ball? I don't know. It's confusing to me.
I
There
don't know.
was the tush push drama of 4 straight times, which some people say it makes them look almost weak. Like, you got Saquon, why can't you run in? And other people are saying that they feel like it's going to get banned, so they might as well just use it up because screw it. But it's definitely, it's going to irritate the casual person. I'm not sure people. I'm sure people in Philly don't care if you're irritated as long as you win. They're like, nobody wants to watch that. You're going to start getting boos and be really disliked if you keep doing that. The AJ Brown drama is not great, but the thing is, they're trying but failing. He had 9 targets again. If you look at, he keep getting tons of targets but no production. It's just, they feel like this is a repeat of a couple years ago. They just feel like a weird team. They got the talent. They'll end with a winning record, but there's something really weird there. And if they'll make the playoffs for sure, but I guess the question is this, was it 2 years ago when they made the playoffs on a bad losing streak and then they lost to Tampa? That's what it looks like. It looks like you're watching deja vu of that, where you could see them get in the playoffs, 10, 11 wins, and then somehow they'll lose in the first round, and it'll be like an ugly loss. And you'll be like, wow, what happened to the Super Bowl champions? They just played, let's say they play, they win the division and they play, who would they play? A wild card team? Maybe they play Seattle, and I could see them losing to like a Seattle, a smaller market team. We're like, oh, what the hell? How come Seattle just wiped the floor with them? Because maybe Seattle doesn't win the division, the Rams do, and then they end up going to Philly and beating them in Philly.
I love
It
Seattle, but
feels
yeah,
like
I
a
mean,
predictable
that
trend.
defense may be able to take advantage of that, especially the way this team's just not performing. I'm hoping like the Bills and the Eagles, you got to like make a statement game. And if you're looking at, I thought the Eagles would be able to dominate, but yeah, win by like 10, 14 points, and they end up losing by 17. And they weren't down throughout the game. Throughout the first half, it was tight. The Eagles defensive line the Eagles' defensive line is struggling a lot. When you talk about the rushing attacks or rush defense, the Eagles and the Giants pretty weak there. So I was like, okay, Saquon's game. Look, Saquon back in New York, like it's going to be able to perform. He's going to be able to perform. And like you were saying, so he started the game off with 18-yard run. Then he went 11 for 40 throughout the rest of the game. That's still almost 4 yards a carry. He averaged almost 5 yards a carry. Like he was doing fine. But then the Giants, on the other hand, 39 rushes to 17 passes. And then all of a sudden, 25 passes, but still a big difference, 17 for 25 dart completed. Then on the other hand, Jalen Hurts threw the ball 33 times compared to 20 rushes for the team. And I know they were behind in the second half, but throughout most of the game, you were tight and you're only down 7. You're down 10 points, like going into the fourth quarter. You don't have to just throw in desperation. This is a team that's acting like they're not the defending champions. They're not superior. They're acting like they're vulnerable because maybe they aren't feeling good about their offense. They're trying to like appease everybody. It's like people pleaser energy. Instead of AJ Brown, if we
Yes.
win and you're 3 for 40, okay, 3 catches, 40 yards, you should be happy with that. But no, he's going to complain. So, okay, you'd rather a loss where you get 6 for 80? Like, come on, get out of here. Dallas Goedert, 11 targets, leads the team. If that's going to be the way it is, then that's the way it is. You have everybody open. And the one bad throw, Jahan Dotson, it wasn't even that bad of a throw. But, that big interception from the Giants, the big difference
Yeah,
maker, I feel, of the game, that it was a
that was the
decent
one.
throw. You're just throwing to the fourth, target, the fifth, including
And
Saquon, the fifth best offensive player.
and speaking of which, you mentioned Saquon. I'd love to see them get him the ball more throwing the ball. I think he really haven't done anything receiving this year, and he can be maybe not Christian McCaffrey, but he could be a top running back receiver. That you mentioned that throw. I'm not even going to talk about the throw itself, good or bad. I'm just saying the Eagles were number 1 in the red zone. I don't know if they still are entering the last week. Why are you not running the ball there? You're down 10. It's not like the game's over. That throw kind of ends the game because it's borderline a pick six. The Giants take it all the way back and then they end up scoring. So, but you got a touchdown there. You're down 3. You're picking up momentum. Why are we not running the ball? Like that's a perfect time to be running the ball and establish, cut it to 3, burn some more clock, keep your defense off the field, give them some rest. I'm not sure why we're throwing in the play call. I just don't understand the throw there instead of run. I don't get at all.
I don't want to talk about this too much, but he was averaging under 3 yards a carry going into the game. So okay, struggling, but then all of a sudden 18 yards. I'm like, he's gonna pop out for 200 today. Let's go. But no, he ended the game with 50 yards or so, 59 yards. It's like this is not what we need. On the other hand, the Bucks, it doesn't matter who they're losing. They're down, they're on their like fourth left tackle. It doesn't matter what they're doing right now. They're just performing. It doesn't matter who's in. They're performing. They're doing well. They're winning. They're winning games. And the Packers they're minus 14.5 versus the Bengals. They should be dominating that game way more than they did. This is not a team that's going to show me anything in the matchup this week versus the Cardinals. But the Bucks and the Lions, doesn't matter who's on the field, I'm going to be impressed or disappointed based on that performance. It's by far the game of the week for me. All right, we're back, Nerdy Bunch audience. We had a little technical difficulties. So let's jump to this week. It's week 7. It's October 16th. It's Thursday. We got Thursday Night Football. 2 of the oldest quarterbacks of all time. Joe Flacco versus Aaron Rodgers. In Cincinnati, the Pittsburgh Steelers are only minus 4.5. I feel like that's a sneaky line that's saying that the Cincinnati Bengals may be competing. And this is a division that all of a sudden the Cleveland Browns are able to win games versus the Steelers or the Ravens who are dominating. Look, I never advise anybody to bet on division matchups, especially Thursday night matchups. As we've learned time and time again, do not bet on any game in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Do not, I don't care. The Broncos should have dominated that early matchup. They end up winning, but the Jets still, I guess, had a great defense for 1 week. They're still completely defeated, but let's focus on Thursday Night Football. Pittsburgh Steelers. Time and time again, week after week, we keep saying bet on this team to win the division. They're finally favored. They're minus 160 as we started the podcast with. But we got the Ravens at plus 170. I think the Ravens are right off. They're 25th in sharp power football rankings. How do you feel about the AFC North as a whole?
I think the Ravens are done. I don't see that they can get themselves out of this hole. I think Pittsburgh ends up winning the division. I don't think Cincinnati and Cleveland are not worth talking about, to be honest, unless Joe Burrow has some type of a miraculous recovery and comes back by like December 1st, then, which I don't think is possible, but I guess theoretically. But let's assume he doesn't. They're done, and I don't think Baltimore can catch Pittsburgh. If you want to stay a game to watch, I'm not worried about this game. Just watch 2 games, Pittsburgh versus Baltimore twice this year, because Pittsburgh, I feel like they just need to split. If they split it, that one extra loss pushes Baltimore out the door. If Baltimore, I feel like needs to win both of those to have a chance to come back and steal the division. You look at the wild card. I don't think either team gets the wild card. The way the season's going to break down, like I'm really talking more for Baltimore because they're a more interesting team. I don't think they can get the wild card on wins. I think they have to win the division. And to win the division, they got to give Pittsburgh 2 losses. So I'm really curious. I think Pittsburgh wins tonight. Don't bet it. 100% agree. I'm curious as far as the division goes to see them play each other. But my gut is that Baltimore misses the playoffs this year. Complete miss. And it
I think
made
so
me think
too.
of a different topic, which is big picture. Are we seeing a little bit of a change in under guards? We mentioned the Bills taking a step back. The Ravens maybe missed the playoffs. Joe Burrow, I know they missed playoffs a couple times in a row. They're going to miss the playoffs again also, except for Mahomes, who's like you can't kill him 9 lives. It looks like preseason everybody talks about, I'll go quarterbacks here. The top 4, they're in stone. In stone is Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson. Do we have to maybe make some room up there? Because the best availability is availability. Do we knock Joe Burrow down a peg and say maybe he's not a top 4 quarterback anymore just because he's missed so many times?
Maybe.
Does Lamar Jackson take a small hit even? I know he's missed less time. And does Josh Allen take a small hit if they fail in the playoffs early? Let's just throw it out there and say worst case scenario and say, okay, maybe we can't just say the next decade is locked in stone who the best 4 quarterbacks are. We have to start looking at other quarterbacks. Obviously, my guy, Baker Mayfield, but even other quarterbacks coming up. I don't care. You take a young quarterback. Like
Look at
Jalen
that.
Ramsey, he had a bad week. There's always new people coming. It's like, I feel like preseason for like the third year in a row, people are like, we know who the top four quarterbacks is, and it's kind of an untouchable subject. You can't talk about it. I'm like, well, it can't be forever. Like history tells you that it's not going to stay that way. Maybe two quarterbacks like a Manning Brady, but generally the top four don't stay the top four for a decade. So I'm looking at a changing of the guard here, where a year where it's a Buffalo wild card, a Baltimore out of the playoffs, a terrible season for Cincinnati. The Chiefs somehow, of course, are amazing, but everybody else looks like maybe a change of guard. You look at the top of the division. We got the Colts in the top of the conference. We got, maybe if the season ended today, I know I just mentioned Chiefs, Texans, they won the division last year, and the Cincinnati, I know they didn't make the playoffs, but Joe Burrow. So you talk to four bigger market quarterbacks would be out of the playoffs today. Is there a changing of guard in the NFL? Quick question, yes or no?
It's the league of parody, right? And this is never, I've never felt more parody, more questions on who's the best team in the league. And yeah, I think the Lions are the best team in the NFC right now, and they're -5.5 hosting Tampa Bay with a bunch of injuries, bunch of question marks. Who knows if Bucky Irving and Mecca Ibuka are back this week? But look at that. Baker Mayfield is now top five, potentially, quarterback in the league. This is a team that the two of the worst teams in the Cleveland Browns and the Carolina Panthers were like, this guy's not good enough for our organization.
Yeah.
Then he goes to Tampa and lights it up.
An extra shout out for Carolina. I want to give an extra shout out for Carolina, who cut Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold in the same year, and now Sam Darnold's having that great year in Seattle. Baker's his favorite to win the MVP. It's like when you're a bad team, it's like just everything you touch. It's like the opposite. Everything you touch turns to gold. They're the opposite. Everything you touch turns to, I won't say it out here. I guess like we could say shit. You just destroy things. But
and they're only -1.5 versus the Jets. Only -1.5. I mean, talk about a dumpster fire matchup. Panthers versus Jets, but it's a coin toss, according to Vegas. They don't even feel like the Panthers are going to be able to beat the Jets. I mean, look, I'm not picking either of those teams. And same, another, not to shit on my Eagles even more, but Minnesota's +1.5 versus the Eagles.
Really?
Come on, the Vikings aren't doing anything. These lines are fishy, and I would not pick. I mean, you have the Chiefs versus Vegas, another dominant, that's 12.5. You got the Patriots -6.5 versus Tennessee. There's a lot of great teams versus bad teams. There's not a lot of really good matchups outside of Tampa versus Detroit, Seattle versus Houston, two great Monday Night Football matchups, but there's really not much else. I mean, I guess Atlanta versus San Francisco, but even that's like the battle of who's the sixth. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, the ones that jump at me, I like New England. I think, remember, this is the Mike Vrabel revenge game.
On the road.
He got fired.
Yes.
A lot of people said, even I feel bad for the people of Tennessee, because there are people in Tennessee like, why did we do that? You look what Tennessee's been since. They went through a GM, another coach, first round pick quarterback. They're lucky it's a small market because Cam Ward is not looking great.
Terrible.
It's almost like one of those. It's an early sign of what would be like a curse. When teams get cursed, normally it's like a baseball thing. But I think revenge game. I think he wants to hammer them, and I think they can because Tennessee looks so bad. So even at 6.5, I'm getting the hook, if you will. I know 6.5 is a lot. I'm getting that touchdown. So I do like New England to cover. That one probably jumps at me as my favorite bet.
6.5 is always a little scary, but when you look at the odds, whoever wins the game often covers, regardless of the number. And especially like that, Tennessee Titans are arguably the worst team in the league, second to the Jets. And New England is finally battling, and they're like, if we win this, we are all of a sudden at the top of the AFC East. We have the league on the Bills. That's a big game for them. And like you said, Vrabel has nothing more than motivation right now. And Drake May is clearly better than Cam Ward, especially right now. And I don't care who the weapons are. That's why I'm like begging, Trevion Henderson, please have a breakout game. You have so much talent. I need you to be my running back too. He doesn't get enough usage.
Monday night, I like Seattle has a bet again. We bet them last week. It was our favorite.
I love Seattle.
An easy cover. I think it was 1.5, and they won by 8. I like Seattle cover this week. They got Houston's coming to Seattle. That's always a tough trip. It's a longer flight, long-ish, and it's never an easy place for road teams to play. And if you look at Houston, the line's 3.5 for Seattle, but I think it should be higher because Houston's last two games, 44-10, 26-0. But they played a Ravens team with Cooper Rush, and they played Tennessee. We just went on them. Those are not great wins. I understand you can only play who you play, and they blew them out. But those wins don't impress me. They had been 0-3. I think that Seattle wins this relatively comfortably. I
think so too.
7-10 range. So to me, at 3.5, I'm easily, I don't see at minimum they could do 24-20 and cover that. And I think it's probably something like maybe, I'll say low scoring because Houston's defense, but I think it's going to be something like 21-10. I could see them covering like that. So I like, because Seattle's got to do defense and Houston's offense is bad. If you go that combination, I think Houston's going to have a real hard time scoring more than 10, 13 points. And Seattle just needs to get to 21 to cover, in my opinion. I like that. I mean, 21-17, that still covers. So that's my next bet that I like a lot. And you could arguably end Houston's season. If the Colts get a win, then the gap is going to be so big.
Yeah, let's focus on that a
Which,
little bit. So you have the Houston Texans. So we basically have a
mhm,
battle of two great defenses, but the Houston Texans
yes,
are borderline bottom 10 team. And the Seattle Seahawks are clearly a top 10 team right now. They're just there.
yes.
They're probably like ninth, but they're performing really well. And once again, I'm going to take the better team. I don't care what the spread is. 3.5 is also not too much. This team could
No, not
easily
at
win by
home.
7 to 10 points. And the only problem is we pointed out the Texans don't let up points. They let up nothing.
Mhm,
So it could be like a 17-14, and then all of a sudden we lose because it's a 3.5.
yeah. I think they cover. I see your point there, but I do think they cover
No, I get what you're
because,
saying
like,
though. Yeah.
they say home field is worth 2.5 to 3 points. So they're saying this game is like Seattle favored by one. So
They're
I don't
just
see how
not a good
Seattle's
home
significantly
team.
better.
Seattle's really bad at home, but they gotta like all these
Today's the
teams
week. This
really
is the
have
week.
to perform. They got to perform. Like all these teams in the NFC who want to be considered
Mhm.
some of the best, they got to really step it up. That's why I think, subtly Atlanta versus San Francisco is actually a sneaky good matchup. You have San Francisco minus 2.5. Usually I would pick San Francisco automatically. And I'm sure Kyle Shanahan could figure it out, because especially with
Mhm.
right after the Jaguars beat the Chiefs, we're going to pick against them automatically next week. Same thing. And Falcons beat the Bills, we're going to automatically pick against them next week. I think San Francisco is a sneaky line. This is a team that, all of a sudden they are plus 160 behind the Rams for second in the
Mhm.
division, division odds. Obviously missing a lot of guys, but this is a team that, should be winning 11 games this
Yeah.
year. So they got to
This
at least make a difference this week.
this
And then
this game for
the
me is
second best
it's a
matchup for
stay
me.
away one for me because of Fred Warner's out.
Yeah,
So we'll
yeah,
see.
yeah. I'm just saying, like, it's a standard automatic. You want to pick against the team that just had one of the biggest
Hmm.
performances of the week. When you talk about points against the spread, this week we had the Giants who covered by 23.5 points, winning by 17
Not fun.
as underdogs. Amazing. Then second was the
Mm.
Falcons. They covered by 14.5 with their 10-point win. So all of a sudden you want to, go against for the next week. You want to flip the odds. But I think it's subtle. Same
Uh,
thing with the Chiefs. You want to stay away last week from the Chiefs Lions. The Chiefs dominate
mhm.
when they're underdogs or, within 2 or 3 points. I think Pat Mahomes was like, I sent it to you like 11-3 or something like that. And you're like, oh, I want to stay away
Yeah.
from that. But, they ended up covering. They won by 13.
Yeah, the Chiefs game I can't touch because the irony, as you mentioned out. But on the other hand, the Chiefs tend not to put on when they're big favorites. They tend not to cover as often. You look at last year's example, a lot of close games to wins. So that one I'm a little the same way. One that jumps out at me, Colts Chargers. I think the Colts cover this game. Uh, I'm I'm worried about the Chargers. I know they're 4-2, and so you're like, oh, a good team. You start thinking of some of the wins, and they have good wins. If you just look at the final score, and even that's not impressive, they beat a bad Dolphins team by 2. And for those who are watching the game, like I mean, they were a Justin Herbert switch hand pass away from losing that game. If you watch the end of that game, they're down. I think it was like 36 seconds. It was under a minute. Justin Herbert is in the process of being sacked, makes a all-time great move, I would say, to switch hands with the ball, throws the ball, Lad McConkey, he runs the ball up the sideline, and they kick the game-winning field goal, I believe. I'm not sure if they got in the end zone, but the point being that you look at that game, and yeah, it was a field goal at the buzzard. They were down one. He gets sacked there. That's fourth down. That is game. Dolphins win that game. The previous week, they lose by 17 to the Commanders, who aren't looking like powerhouses. They just lost to the Bears. So you add the offensive line injuries that they had. Since they had the second offensive line injury they got there, I'm forgetting his name, was uh, not Slater, but the other guy. Since the second injury to the offensive lineman,
Joe
they
Alt.
are Joe Alt. Thank you. They're struggling to be. They got beat up badly by the Commanders, including they were up 10-0. They gave up 27 straight points. They should have lost to the Dolphins. I'm putting that in a should have lost category, and that's a bad Dolphins team. I think this Colts team looked like a buzzsaw, and I think they probably took the Cardinals a little light. You mentioned to me that Jacoby Brissett would play well. I think that was a little bit of a trap game, but they survived it. So once you survive the trap game, then you can normally move on to a bigger game, and they're actually getting a point and a half. So they could lose at 27-28 and you still cover. So I like the
Yeah.
Colts, and it's also an important game as you just want to go like standings. You got 4-2, 5-1. This is an important game for the conference. So I like the Colts to cover that one, and the Chargers have to kind of regroup and figure out what they're going to do. Do we actually think that Kendall Vondell is going to have a great running back game? Is he that good of a running back, or does he just have a good game? Because they did lose their main running back too. So
Yeah.
that to me is again against the Dolphins. So again, he looks better production. So I think against this Colts line, and the Colts are great in the trenches, offensive and defense. I think the Colts win this game and put the Chargers kind of back into wandering a little bit. Be like, what do we do here? They're going to be reeling a little bit. It was a bad game against Washington, a bad loss, a bad win, but a bad win against Dolphins, and they a loss this week. That's what I think is going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, it's a stay away game, but you got the Rams versus the Jaguars. So the Rams could easily beat the Jaguars. And then the Colts could take commanding lead of that division if they're able to beat the Chargers. And like you're saying, the Chargers
Yeah.
are in that like Pittsburgh Steelers bubble for a team that could potentially just barely make the playoffs or just barely miss the playoffs. Steelers obviously way higher odds because of their division, but like they're not commanding performers. It's just a good enough team. And a good enough team versus a team right now that's literally looking like the best team in the AFC. If we were talking about the Lions, the Bucks, the Colts are looking good. It maybe not the preseason odds, but they're looking like one of the best teams. Honestly, just straight on the field, if I have no past grievances, I think they're like a top 3 team right now. Jonathan Taylor's pass blocking is incredibly much better. This way, he's actually on the field for all 4 downs. He's not used to that. That's why he's performing so much better. That's why Daniel Jones is trusting these guys so much. And they don't have any absolute amazing like target, like a number 1 wide receiver, but they are just playing very consistent, very solid football, very fundamental football. I trust the Lions. I trust the Colts. I trust the Bucks. The Rams are performing really well too. It's just the Puka Nacua injury is tough. Those are 4 good teams. And I could easily see the Colts taking a commanding lead. That's why I love this Colts minus 135 to win the division. I don't have faith in the Jaguars, and I don't think I will ever have faith in the Jaguars for the next 10 podcasts that we do. I'm just not going to believe in them. I love Indiana plus 1.5. Road victory. Another team that's 1.5, as I mentioned, the Philadelphia Eagles. I know we're crapping on the Eagles, but this is still a team that's one of the best teams in the league, right? And they just lost 2 weeks in a row versus the Broncos and the Giants. Are they really going to lose to the Vikings? A team, once again, in that bubble, that Steelers bubble, that Texans bubble, that like the Vikings? Are the Vikings really going to beat the Eagles? I know they're home, but am I crazy? I know I'm a little biased, but the Eagles got to win that game, right? Is that one of your favorite bets, or is it a stay away for you?
I think the key word you said in the end is they gotta win. Like you
They
can't
gotta
lose
win.
3 in a row. You can't lose to a Vikings team that they're not bad by any means, but this is not a powerhouse team. You can't lose that game. What happened? You lose that game, I feel like it's gonna you might start to lose the locker room, which already seems a little shaky. So that is a must win. I mean,
Would you
this
put it on
is
your
the stay away
Colin
game for me.
top 5? It's stay away? Oh, all
Just
right.
because it's just
Let's see you next
I'm
week.
only putting a stay away.
They're
as,
just
like,
looking so bad.
it just feels like fishy. I have no reason on paper not
It's
to pick them to
fishy.
win.
It is fishy.
But it's just something. It's like, does Vegas know more to me? Like they don't. They say they
Yeah.
don't build those hotels out of thin air. They're just screaming something weird here.
Yeah.
Like you want to talk about the trap games, and it's like those weird games are
It
kind of like the Philly
certainly
game last
is.
week, where it's like last week we said I think I used the words I can't think of a reason on paper why the Giants would win this game. But I
Yes,
didn't
you
pick them
did.
to win either.
No.
And I feel like the same reason. It's like I can't think of a reason why Philly shouldn't win, which is almost too much for me. That I end up being like I don't want to bet it. So for me, it's not a bet game, but I agree with you on your big thing. It's a have to win game. If they don't win that game, the season could be lost. The locker room is going to be shattered. 3 losses in a row. It's always tough to come back from. Anytime that there's a stat about teams that lose 3 games in a row, any point in the season,
Yeah.
there's only like 2 or 3 of them that have ever made the Super Bowl. It's almost impossible.
That's why the Ravens are
So
off. But the Eagles are still like a top team. I know we're frustrated. We're frustrated because we expect greatness.
mhm.
They're still
And
performing pretty well overall. Like They have
Yeah,
enough.
yeah, no.
They're not one of the top five teams in terms of on-field performance, but I may cry in our podcast next week if they lose to the
I
Vikings.
mean, and they should win the division. Also, they have a relatively
Yeah.
easy division. Washington's pulling back this year, which is not surprising. Dallas is fun, but not great. The Giants is an interesting story because everybody loves a new quarterback story. Even I take
Hmm.
bias now, it's just fun to watch. But I mean, this is not a hard division. They should be able to win this division. The one seed that looks nowhere in sight for them, but they should easily win the division. So that's a bonus for them. That heartbreaking Washington loss in the fumble, that was big for Philly. It gave them some cushion to breathe, and now
They're still
they
only
got to take advantage
minus
of it.
175. They're minus 175. Not even 2-1 odds to win the division. And the
I feel
Commanders
like that.
aren't lighting it up. Like that's not a bad
I
bet.
mean, I think it's a good bet because you obviously they looked bad last week, but just like stocks, you got to buy low. So you have to buy Philly off a loss. Even you so it by sense that's the buy because if you don't get them now, and let's say they come out next week and they do look good against Minnesota, those odds are going to shoot up to like minus 280. So you're going to lose half your value immediately. So this is where you want. This is the best time if you have any faith in Philly. Now's the time. You're getting pretty good odds for a weak division. And Jaden Daniels, keep in mind, he already had a small injury, and he had one last year. I'm not wishing anything, but it wouldn't be crazy if somebody told me that he misses another 3 games just over the course of this year. I'm not even saying what weeks, what type of injury. If he just misses another 2, 3 games, I'd be like, yeah, I could see that happening. And those are almost guaranteed losses when he's out. I think that's a good bet. I like Philly's future bet more than this week. Not
Yeah.
that I like them to lose. I'm just feel like this is a little fishy.
No, it is a fishy line. It's 1.5. I literally pointed that out beforehand. I guess if you actually think they're going to lose this week and then, end up still winning the division, you do want to wait a little bit.
And you get
Do
real
you
good
like
odds.
any other bets for this week? So you got three solids. So you have Indy, New England, Seattle, all teams we like. I'm glad you're not picking
Yes.
a bad team. Who's your fourth?
No. Oh man. All right. So these bets are not as complex. Those are 3 bets I'm going to make myself. I'm going to do two
Locked.
more that are more of my the fringe. If you don't have to make them, I'll throw them there. You're on the wrong side of the hook, but Denver against my Giants. That Denver
Okay.
defense is so
Seven and a
good,
half.
and you're talking about a rookie quarterback. And I know Jackson Dart's played really well for a rookie, but he is a rookie quarterback. There's stats about rookie quarterbacks. They're playing Denver they're the number one defense. I don't think it's really a debate, to be honest. Like they have
Yeah,
so many
that's a
stats
good
to back
home
it up.
field.
I know Justin Fields is bad, but they gave up 82 yards to the Jets. Like, and that home field you mentioned, that altitude, I think they cover. I think that could be ugly. I could see something like they're not super high scoring Denver, but I could see like 23-3, like something like that, like that type of dominance. And then
And the
there's
Giants
one
have
more that's
never
not even a
received
bet.
more love. With Jackson Dart
Yeah.
and Cam Scadaboo, everybody's talking about their bromance. They're the new Brady Gronk. There's
hmm
got to be a lot of
Is
public
their head a
money
little
going
too
on the
big?
Giants right now. Yeah, they just had a dominant performance against their division rival Super Bowl champs, at
Sure.
home. Now they're going on the road in Denver versus a team that needs it. They need this badly. They're plus
And
250 to win their division. A great
you
division.
mentioned a lot of money. I would bet that if the Eagles had won against the Giants, reverse the score, say 34-17, this is probably a 10.5 point spread. That Eagles win is giving them at least a field goal with
I bet.
Vegas right there.
Yeah. All right.
The
So I'll
final
write
one,
down.
this is not one I even want to bet, but it's just a game I feel like I have to mention because I don't have really a fit to great bet. And I feel like almost every week. I need to see a dominant win by the Packers. I gotta see a dominant win by the Packers. The line is six and a
I'm not
half.
picking the
I
Packers.
need to see them cover. I'm not even picking them to cover, but I need to see them to cover because if you're
But the
playing maybe
Cardinals are that
Jacoby
bad.
Brissett, yeah, if
Yeah,
you're playing
yeah.
Jacoby Brissett, let's say, and you can't cover 7, what's going on here? I gotta see the Packers crush that line. I gotta see it. I'm putting the tiny. I'm betting. I'll bet it, but that's like a dollar bet for me because I'm not have faith in it. That's more of just what I want to see. I'm not even talking about the odds so much as far as I need to see a dominant win. I got to see it from the Packers because Vegas has somehow. I think you said they were second in the NFC. I want to say they're sixth on the power rankings ahead of the Chiefs. I don't know how. Like
No, the
they're getting
Packers are
too
number
much love from
one
me.
by
I'm
100.
looking at the overall power rankings. They're sixth.
Power
Um,
rankings. Yes.
yeah, but oh, sorry, you said they're number one to win the NFC. Number one
The
in the NFC.
odds. Yeah, yeah.
If you can't crush the Cardinals, and you're both in the NFC, so it's same conference. If you can't crush the Cardinals this week, why should you be number one? Like, show me that I'm wrong. Maybe make me the idiot. Make me look like the idiot. I will gladly be like, oh man, I guess I'm dumb. But the Cardinals are third last, 14th in the NFC, and listed as number one odds. Why can't you crush the Cardinals? Like 7 is not that much. Uh, it, it, it's not that much to crush a team by 7 anymore.
No, a team
So
that's
I need
absolutely
to see that.
terrible too. They do.
Exactly.
This is a team that's still ahead of the Bills and the Chiefs in the power rankings. This is a team that went up
Exactly.
in the power rankings after a mediocre victory against the Cincinnati Bengals.
With Joe
Ah,
Flacco on 5 days there or something, 3 days there, like I
yeah.
got to see that. So
Jamar
I don't
Chase
feel
had a
confident
great
betting
game
it, but
again. Come on.
I'm not
Is
confident
Marvin
betting that
Harrison
game.
Jr. gonna go off?
But
Maybe.
let me see that. Come on, just let me see that. That's my fifth one. Less of a bet and more of a watch, but I'll put it on the top 5 bet anyway. I'll put that one out there.
All right. So here you go. There's Scotty's top 5 bets. So what do you think is your favorite? Seattle, maybe New England, maybe Indiana.
I'd
Annapolis, Road
say
Dogs, plus one and a
for me
half. Is that
it's
your favorite bet of the
really
week?
for me the closest ones is Seattle and New England
Mm-hmm.
are my two favorites,
Okay.
and then the
Okay.
Colts are slightly behind that one. Seattle, New England are my two favorite bets of the week. It's hard to coin toss there because I could look at both of them. Seattle, it's the odds are a little. It's only 3.5 compared to 6.5, but I do think that Mike Vrabel, he's a player's coach. Players love him. He was fired when he's been just an amazing coach. He leaves immediately, looks good. You you wouldn't mind running up the score. So 6.5 feels smaller this week than a normal 6.5 because I can't help but to think that if the players are going to want to keep that score higher. And Tennessee looks so bad, so I think that's probably my number one, even above Seattle by just a little bit.
Well, I'm ready for Marvin Harrison Jr. to have a good game finally. He hasn't really had any great performance this year. He has 2 touchdowns. His best game was versus Seattle, six
Mhm.
catches, 66 yards, and a touchdown. He had versus Tennessee, 4 catches, 98 yards. He hasn't really had a great game. So, look, the Packers, they are weak, and you got to pick somebody to go off, and they got Bam Knight, the Cardinals, as their starting running back right
Yeah,
now.
but
So the Packers really got to dominate this game. It's bad. Like if you
they
really
have to.
break it down, like there's nobody on the Cardinals that I'm afraid of. Unfortunately, McBride's also not even performing that well. So the Packers are the team we're watching this week. We don't have faith, but we gave you 5 of our best bets. All right, Nerdy Bunch audience, thanks for joining us as always. Thanks for liking, subscribing, following. We'll be back for another week next week. We have the NBA basketball regular season starting next week. We are starting to do some prep. We were going to bring an over under, but luckily gambling's so prominent that we're going to have over unders and bets to have each and every week. So don't you worry. We're going to rev up with some more basketball coming up soon. But as always, Scotty,
Keep it nerdy.
peace.